Welcome back to Let's Talk Careers. I'm so excited to bring another incredible guest. Today we are speaking with Janine Shapiro, who is a personal leadership coach and healer. Welcome, Janine. It's so great to have you with me today.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Maria. It's a gift to be here.
I am thrilled. Everybody knows how much I love talking about careers, and bringing female entrepreneurs onto the platform is always exciting for me. We are going to be jumping into so many things, from how did you make that decision to work for yourself? How did you find that guidance? And then obviously we're going to be diving into, what's it really like to be a personal leadership coach and a healer in 2024. But before we jump into all those details, I want to take you back to when you were a young teenager. When I work with students in high school, they talk about the future, and sometimes they're really scared about making those choices. And many times they're really confused about making those choices. When you were a younger teenager, how did you know what you wanted to do, or did life just lead you towards those decisions?
To be very blunt, I had no idea what I wished to do. I was curious and I was like, what can I do? I was also very much alone at school. I felt very different. And what I enjoyed, most people didn't enjoy, like biology and reading and things like that. Maths, we will absolutely leave out of the equation. I've definitely, though, was like, what can I do? What do I enjoy? What don't I enjoy? I love reading, and I couldn't see myself being an editor or anything like that. I did know that I wished to travel. And for me, that was like, well, what can I do to travel? So I was aware of various things. Like when I was young, there were very few things open to women. You either became a nurse, a teacher, a secretary, or a doctor. And if you had no maths ability, like Charlene, a doctor wasn't even on the agenda. I just knew. So our options were very limited when I was growing up, So it was fascinating how things shifted and changed. When I was looking at it, I couldn't feel what I would like to do. And I went, okay, well, let's see what happens.
Amazing. That's really refreshing. I have to say that first, that you were able to identify a couple of things for us. One, what it was like in that time. And I think right now, the appreciation of knowing that young girls have seen many, many role models in so many different roles that they may not have been exposed to previously. But also that self-awareness that you had about your academic skills that helped you to kind of process what you didn't want to do. And I think sometimes students forget that that's sometimes the best strategy, to kind of eliminate things so that you can clearly start to look at other options. What was it like in terms of your home role models? What were your family, society, what were they encouraging you to do at that time?
It's actually very interesting. You struck a chord of memory for me before I answer that. My parents did get me assessed, and we went to various things, and all of it led to business, which I really wasn't interested in, from the perspective that my dad had his own business, and it caused a lot of stress between him and my mom. From the fact that he worked longer hours. He had to be away to go and do what his business was. He was an armature winder, and so he would go away to the mines to fix things. And I remember saying, I never want to be in business. And then guess what came up when I went for my testing? Go into business. Well, that was a bit of a shocker. And I went, nah, I don't think so. Again, the maths, at that time, I hadn't separated arithmetics and mathematics yet. So I'm pretty good with numbers, except when I transpose 6s and 9s and 3s and 5s and 8s and nines. So that makes it interesting. Bookkeeping and accountancy were also out off the charts for me. So my role models were my gran, who I admired very much. She had always worked and she had a very strong work ethic. My mom worked as well. She also had a very strong work ethic, and so did my dad. The challenge was my dad having his own business caused a few challenges. So, yes.
And here you are today, a businesswoman working for yourself.
Yes, I know. How amazing is it?
So somewhere in
And
that assessment, there was a little bit of truth and, maybe a bit of a
yes,
prediction for you. Let's talk about
yes.
what it's like to be an entrepreneur. How long has it been for you that you decided, A, I want to work in the field of personal development and well-being, and B, I don't want to do this as an employee for someone else. I want to do it for myself.
Well, let me put it in perspective. When I went nursing, I really, really disliked the hours. When I got to work 3 straight weeks, night shift, 12 hours with no break, my husband said to me, we've got to find another way. I didn't marry you for you to be somewhere else at night. It just doesn't crack it for me. So I started looking around, and that was 34 years ago, many years ago, 34 years. So also at that time, Maria, in our country, a husband and a wife was still seen as a child and had no signing powers, couldn't do anything for herself. And her husband had to sign off on everything. So, and my tax was added to my husband's tax, which put him into the next tax bracket. And I can tell you, I was earning very little with what I was doing. And that was another reason I decided to come home and look for something to do for myself so that I could do it in a way that was less impacting on our tax situation as well. And then I fell pregnant with my son. And because I really enjoyed midwifery, I decided to go into antenatal and postnatal education. And that in itself was a journey that led me towards what I'm doing now, working with women, working with children, seeing the limitations and seeing, I had somebody, she was pregnant and she literally had to go back to work when her baby was 2 days old because she had no other financial support. The father of the child was absent, missing in action. So it was a very interesting way. I'm not sure if I answered your question.
You absolutely did. So just taking you down that timeline from nursing to midwifery to then deciding that you wanted to work for yourself. Is that correct? Is that correct time frame? And as you were telling this story, I'm listening to it in terms of career theory and how one evolves on that process. So going from exploring what career you want to do, eliminating based on your influencer, your father, and not the job, but more the quality of life, if I understood that correctly. And that's why you decided business might not be for you. Going into nursing, then the quality of working with people, working with women, working with children, going into midwifery because of interest, but you made that choice to leave nursing because it was impacting the quality of your life in the relationship with your husband and obviously your family. And then going into midwifery because of interest, potentially aligning with the quality of life that you were looking for. And you mentioned a really interesting factor before we jump into entrepreneurship, something that we often celebrate, but rarely put in context when we're helping young people. You mentioned that in your country at that time when you were a nurse, women were, not independent in terms of their financials at work and their earnings. Without disclosing age, tell us what decade that was in.
I have no problem telling you I'm 60 years old. I celebrate my age because many women haven't reached it, although that is changing. When I got married in 1984, it was very different to what it is now. So yes, it really, really was. And before I even met my husband and I went nursing, I worked in the bank in the investment division. And that for me was a nightmare. I just knew I could not sit in an office with women who all they did was gossip and bitch and be ugly. It just, I'm not saying they did that all the time. There were some
Yeah.
lovely people, individuals. The energy for me was just toxic. And I looked at that and I went squeak. And when I went into nursing, it had its own dynamic that made me go squeak. And it was that feeling of being out of control that also helped me decide I would like to be able to make choices in my life.
So much food for thought. 1984. That is not a long time ago. And that reality right now, that's sitting with me and thinking, we celebrate women and independence and equality, but 1984, that is not a long time. So thank you for bringing that up. Definitely something for young people, both boys and girls and other, to really consider in terms of looking back and celebrating the wins, right? The little milestones that we sometimes take for granted. Anyway, I'm going off on a tangent. Let's bring it right back to a couple of things that you mentioned to me, in things that you don't want to tolerate anymore in your career. And that one essential thing that many guests talk to me about, and that's time. Before we jump into time, tell me, as an entrepreneur, how you decide that, you know what, you're not going to do the hustle. You're not going to do that anymore. You're not going to do that drive. And you're not going to do what other people want you to do.
Yes.
Where did that confidence come in as an entrepreneur?
I feel it had more to do with my health. I started passing out behind the steering wheel. I started being unable to stay awake for long periods of time. And the stress of the hustle and the drive for who I am and what I require was way too much. Subsequently, I also came to understand the reason I also it was advisable to leave nursing is I take on other people's energies. And at that time, I was completely unaware of that. So when I started my journey and I started looking at the energetic expenditure of it, I can sit and worry about something for hours, or I can let it go, put it on the calendar and make a plan. And I find that my schedule is one of the best things that helped me understand that this is what I have capacity for. I can increase my capacity. I can grow my capacity. I still get to have white spots in my calendar so that I can adjust things, I can be flexible, and I can move forward. Because it reached a point where I slept a lot of my children's life away when they were younger, because I was unable to deal with the hustle and the drive of when I could get things done. I could spend 48 hours awake and get things done. See to the children, see to my husband, not sleep that night, get things done. And it served nobody in the long run. It definitely stole from my children. It stole from myself. And it's left me with many regrets that I've had to leave behind and work beyond. And it's a very real thing, mom guilt. If I may offer your audience something, understand that when you have a family, life does change. Dynamics do change. Yes, it's vital to have that income coming in. And what I chose to see is what is a better way of valuing what I do, what I can do, the services I can offer, and still take care of me in the process so that I've got something left over to give my children, my husband, and my clients. And that wisdom helped me to understand that hustle is a wounded culture. Focused, energized perspectives help us move forward so much more easily. And that concept, you have to work hard to get anywhere, I would like to avoid swearing. So we'll just say it's a non-negotiable factor. Hard work does not equal, is absolutely has no bearing on success. Effective work, understanding who you are and the energy brings an ease that is so much more effective. I have seen there's better ways of doing things, there's easy ways, and people say, but that seems so easy. Yeah, and your point is it gets the job done, you feel good, and you can go and play for an hour as well.
Yeah.
And it's that concept of hustle and hard work that has cost many people their families, their relationships, and their health. You can get the same work done with focus and understanding where you're choosing to go and making better, more effective choices. Because I found when I make certain choices, it's like everything slots into place. People do things and, oh my goodness, look at this. It's just so much more empowering. So for me, it was my health that said to me, you're either going to slow down or you're going to be 6 foot under, basically, or cremated, one of the two.
The pause is impact. I think we talk about this often, particularly with young people who are expected to get the grades, be competitive, get as much experience as possible. It's not good enough to just be a good student. You have to do after school activities. As a university student, you have to have taken on internships, do volunteer work, and the list goes on. And you're rightly saying it in terms of making decisions to be efficient, but we're not machines, and being mortal beings, we do have our limitations. So Janine, when that call came through for you in terms of your health and your realization that it's either life or not living because your health was wavering, how did your other responsibilities align in terms of when you're making those careers? Because sometimes ego in what we do, but I'm qualified, but I'm experienced. But how did you put that at bay and say, no, I'm going to be more efficient and I want to live?
This is where it got very interesting. I literally the one day just said, I cannot do this anymore. I had my business. I was in a business with my husband and I was helping him with his business. My children were young. My son was at a point where he didn't wish to come home anymore. Well, what would he like to come home to an absent family for anyway? And my daughter was unwell herself. And I just said, I can't anymore. And what happened was my husband's, the firm that he was contracting to, moved him to where he spent the week away and he'd come home on weekends. And it was like life, because I made the decision, I can't anymore. Life helped me orchestrate it. And that is the reason I'm saying, when you truly make the decision, there is a different way to achieve what I'm looking to achieve. It's as though life comes to the party, other people come to the party. I've seen this since then. I've seen how things, when I get to ask and I say, what are the possibilities of this? Where can I shift this? And what it has allowed a much better relationship between my children and myself, my husband and myself. I will say it took him a while to understand that I was unavailable to work at his energetic capacity and level. And when he did come to understand it, he was incredibly supportive. Not all women have that choice. Very often they are the sole breadwinner and they get to find other resources to support them. I support quite a few ladies who no longer have a partner that's supportive, and we get to work around what is vital, what is urgent, and what absolutely can wait, that looks urgent, sounds urgent, and is bashing the door down, and can actually wait for an hour or so. And it's to be able to assess this, work with this, and say, the most important thing is food on the table, or is it? What if taking care of yourself will put more food on the table and bring more ease into life? And it was when I took that decision that things really started working out for us in a much, or for myself. When I made the decision that I refuse to live somebody else's dream anymore, including society's perception of what a woman should be doing, how she should be doing it, when she should be doing it. And I said, you can have your concepts, your perceptions. I'm unavailable for that game. I'm just unavailable for that game. Thank goodness, I started getting more done. It was the most amazing thing. I actually achieved more using far less energy. It was, so what was I doing that hustle, hassle, bunch of nonsense for when, look at this. Wow.
I'm listening to you and I'm thinking, yeah, I'm going to get rid of this part of what I do. It's so freeing to hear you say that. Where did that confidence come in for you? Was it I know you said it was that health scare, but was it just the health scare, or was it your age? Was it like, what's the milestone that we need to look forward to that gives us that permission?
Wonderful thing. Excuse me interrupting, but turning 40 is a wonderful thing. Every year is a wonderful thing. I must say, my 40th birthday was one of the worst experiences I've ever had. But anyway, because of other people, not because of myself. I've been part of a self-development program now, reading books, listening to inspirational audios and that sort of thing for 28 years. I can genuinely say it is really only 17 years ago that I started applying with focus what I was learning. What then also happened was, like I say, my husband started working away from home and I had time to breathe. My son was older and I also had time to breathe. I also decided I am worthwhile. And that was the actual switch for me. I'd gone through the health thing. I had worked through it. I'd worked through with my daughter. It was the day I made the decision that I am choosing me. And people say, oh, that's so selfish. Yay, let's celebrate. Because when you look at the energy, you can be selfish to create, or you can be selfish to destroy. Where self is part of selfish. So when you are able to grow your inner self and acknowledge your inner self, you actually give other people the permission to do the same thing. And guess what? You then can work co-creatively rather than co-destructively. And each person can be independent and interdependently work and walk towards your goals rather than stumbling and falling and driving and pushing and losing focus of love and joy and peace in your life. Are there going to be times when you feel driven? Absolutely. And you know there's an end point.
Where were you when I was younger, Janine? So many insights. Just as I'm bringing our conversation to a close, I'm thinking about that young person right now who is saying, I have to get it figured out now. I have to get it figured out now, whether it's at that high school milestone or that undergrad, university grad milestone, or even more pressure after a graduation, master's degree, PhD, doctorate level of like, if I don't figure it out now, like, what am I doing with my life? What is your number one go-to affirmation, thought process? Like, what would you tell that person?
First of all, for young people, please ask yourself, whose dream are you being asked to live? your parents, your teachers, or your own. If it's financially possible, take a year to discover who you are now. It doesn't even take a year, it can take 3 months. And understand you will grow and change. Taking action brings inspiration. Inspiration doesn't just come. Also, you haven't yet, as a younger person, had the ability to build the capacity to understand where you're ending up. The important thing to know is you can use every single thing on your journey. Working at the bank helped me understand structure. My nursing, my midwifery, and my psychiatry helped me understand people, myself, and what I'm really unavailable for. Having children helped me understand the dilemma of relationships and that we aren't here to bring our children up. We are here to learn from our children so that we can mature into the people that can have joy, can have happiness, and can live life rather than just exist in life. Know that when you can be in the present, you can hear and feel the clues life is giving you. If you are living tomorrow, the next day, 20 years ahead, you are unable to make the better feeling decision for yourself in the now. So what's this teacher saying? Oh, look at this. I wonder how come this thing about, I'm trying to think of I wonder how come this thing around destiny keeps coming up. What does it mean for me? How does it mean for me? What is this thing about law keep coming up for me? I have no desire to be a lawyer. What does it keep coming to me for? Oh, wow, look, they're looking for a paralegal down the road. I wonder if I would enjoy that. Nope. While you were there, somebody said, would you like to come and do X, Y, Z? And that's where you find your most joy, you find your purpose, you find where you're going. It's that being present, to receive the present of presence so that you can create step by step, moment by moment, that future that you get to hear about in the moment. Something else, if I could just take a few more seconds, is look at who your future self is in December 2024. How would you like to feel? What would you like to be wearing? Who would you like to be? Because as you look at creating that person, you're able to decide the skills you're looking to acquire today to be that person and allow that yourself to go along that way to that person. So if you would like to, in December 2024, you would like to be earning X amount, you'd like to be dressed this way, you'd like to have a caring, compassionate feeling, what do you do today to do that? What study is coming forward for that? Where are you being asked to upskill? I can talk for hours on this.
I love it. I feel like I'm in the front row of a very special talk. Thank you, Janine. Saying, where do you want to be in December 2024? I kind of had a flash of where I want to be in 2024. Thank you so much. Janine, I could go on and keep you on for hours, but I'm really conscious of our time and just bringing it to a quiet close for today. We spoke a lot about the youth and helping youth prepare themselves for that future career. But as a practitioner, I often work with career change in the adult world. And as in my experience, as I work with people in that adulthood, the older they get, the more responsibility they have in terms of financial obligations, so on and so forth, the scarier it is for them to make transition. However, as a practitioner who dives deep into theory and research, I know, based on my findings of research, that career theory is clear. your career is a dynamic process. And at every milestone of your life, your needs vary and change. And our career choices will vary and change. Very similar to how you reshared your story and your journey. And it's one thing normalizing that for clients and professionals, but it's a different thing living it.
Yes.
And the clients that my heart goes out to are women who have taken a career break because they made a choice that was either a financial decision or an emotional decision, but it was a decision to, in that moment in their life, take a break in their employment career and take on the role in their career of building their families and taking care of that part of life. But when they try to re-enter the workforce, there's a fear of who will hire me or where do I fit in? It's been X number of years. And on the other side of it, with working women getting so much more attention today, and I say this as a working mom as well, it's like oh, wow, let's give her the crown because she's working and she has children and she's not using her family as an excuse for not working. And women that have taken that break are feeling the pressure of, how do I slide back in? When you work with your clients as a personal leader in coaching and healing, how do you help them understand that the space and the place for them exists, but the confidence to jump right back in with their new skills is needed?
That is such a brilliant question. Thank you for that, Maria, and the deep understanding you have that these ladies have. The other thing is when their husbands die and they're left without an income. That is what I've worked with a lot as well. I ask them to read the book, The Magic of Thinking Big by Dr. David Schwartz, and to study it, number one. Number two, to celebrate the wins they have had and to avoid comparing themselves to other people. To go and find somebody they really admire and to look at the characteristics of that person they admire most, and let's discover it in themselves, because that helps towards confidence. Something I've learned about confidence is when you start doing something, you develop competence and that grows your confidence. The bottom line, though, is it's in the mindset. I have seen women block job opportunities because they feel, well, who would want to hire me? So they go for the interview and immediately nobody desires hiring them because that's their belief. So when we can take that belief and we can shift it to, wow, I have life experience to add to this, it makes such a difference in the person's bearing, in their attitude, and the way they're able to present themselves and to move forward. I know when I've seen people being interviewed, it's sometimes the person who has the confidence and the heart who is hired above the person with the skills. Very interestingly, I find that fascinating. And it's because that person goes, I'm unavailable for anything else except to be hired. I'm absolutely available for where I'm going and what I'm requiring. So number one, it comes down to mindset. Number two, it comes down to role play, practicing and working with somebody who's beautiful like you and helping them understand what the different industries are. And that's the other thing. Like I mentioned to you, a lot of women only had X options when they left school. And now there's an alphabet plus. And it's to say, well, if I could choose, what would I like to do now? Find something that will help them fund themselves so they can upskill to that point, or find where they can upskill to that point and gain the confidence through having learned something new. And that's what I've worked with. I'm currently, there's someone that I was working with. They chose their career because of what their father desired, and they no longer, their fathers passed on and they wish to move ahead. And it's to gain the skills to do that new opportunity. And I will say, I really admire this lady. She's extremely brave with two small children entering a completely new field. And it started with her saying, I am doing this. I see myself doing this. I feel myself doing it. And you know what? I'm unavailable for anybody saying otherwise. Wow, she's making a huge success of it.
That's incredible. Thank you for sharing that with us. Oh, Janine, what an amazing conversation. I hope that you enjoyed it as much as I did. And I know that our audience will equally be walking away with key insights, inspiration, and a new mentor. And that's you, Janine. I mean, I believe that our mentors are not always people that we have next to us. They could be people that we've read about, saw on a video. I feel like you've gifted us with the knowledge of your journey. So thank you for being here, and thank you for sharing that with us. And
You are so
that brings us right to the end of another incredible conversation. My name is Miss V, and we had the amazing Janine Shapiro, who is a personal leadership coach and healer. And that is it for today. Thank you for watching. I will see you all at our next Let's Talk Careers with Miss V.